Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Ad Shoot. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer Box Day Limited, Ad Shoot originally released for the PC in November of 2024. Then in July of 2025, it also got a version for the Nintendo Switch, and that's what we're looking at today. This title is a bullet hell with the premise of you fighting against ads in a virtual space. With that unique idea, it does have some really neat Danmaku bullet patterns. So, if you're looking for a good bullet hell to check out, then this might be one to go and consider. It does have a bit of a budget feel to it, but if you're on the fence, there is a demo available on Steam, and indeed that demo is how I was first introduced to the title from the summer 2024 Next Fest. But with all that said, we find ourselves at the main menu. So there is an opening movie for the game itself, basically kind of this visual novel presentation, but one thing that's interesting about this on the Nintendo Switch is that despite your system localization, when you first start up the title, it will be in Japanese. So to change the language settings, you've got the ability to go and press left and right on your controller, and that will change from Japanese to English and also then to Chinese, depending on your preference. Start will take us to the difficulty selection, but before we get there, just a couple other things to note. After you've completed the game, we unlock an extra stage that does add some extra elements to the game, and I think it's a lot of fun to go and play through, so if you enjoy the game, definitely that's something to aim for. It's not too hard to complete the game as well, as it definitely tends to be an easier bullet hell. Under settings, you have the ability to increase continues basically as high as you want, as well as maxing out your lives and your bombs. Selecting Start, we're taken to the difficulty selection. You have easy, normal, and hard. Easy is definitely on the easier side, so this isn't a bad place to be introduced to bullet hells if you're not very familiar with that type of shoot 'em up. Under normal, we have here, as it says, this mode is a basic difficulty that allows many people to enjoy advertising. So, with that said, let's enjoy some advertising. Once you start the game, so over on the right side of the screen, we can see our lives, our bombs, and then it does also have our controls. The game is a vertical scroller, however, it doesn't have an aspect ratio that would work for Tate, so unfortunately it's just this kind of like a weird square presentation for our field itself. The game has repeating, like, kind of grayish background through all the stages, and that's part of what I think contributes to that whole cheap feel that I was mentioning. So throughout the course of our gameplay, we'll be able to go and use our various abilities to fight advertising elements. In this particular pharmaceutical stage, we're shooting pills, as well as this particular pharmacist who's trying to sell us on various drugs. So in addition to our shot, we also have bombs, and we have focus slow movement, which also gives us a focus shot. So if you want to go and focus your firepower on a boss, that's how you do it. We start with one base power, and then throughout the course of the gameplay, we can go and find these crystals. The blue ones increase your score, but if you find a pink one, that will increase your shot up to 3 times. So the first one gives you the powerful red lasers that you see there, then you're firing behind you, and lastly we have some homing shots that will be added in later. Actually, we can see that right here after picking up that crystal. So should you go and lose a life, then you will be set down 1 power of your shot, so that's something to keep in mind. We do have a life system present in the game itself. When we get to the end of the stage, I'll get back to that in just a second, but when we get into the end of the stage, we have this kind of like visual novel conversation between ourselves and usually a PR individual that's working for a company that we're trying to fight the ads for. So in this case, we're fighting against this PR representative for this pharmaceutical company, Chris. Now triggers the part where the game is definitely on the more awesome side. So with any good bullet hell, the key element that is usually most enjoyable are the boss fights, and that's one thing that I feel Ad Shoot gets right. So you have multiple stages of boss fights against all the bosses that you encounter in the game. The game has 6 base stages, and then you have the additional extra stage that you can play once you've unlocked that. And indeed, the fights are, as I said, like the pleasure of a bullet hell. So here, where with the idea of this being a pharmaceutical company, we have some interesting ideas of how he's attacking us. So in this section, we've got these syringes or pill plungers, I'm not sure what, that are like stamping at us. And if we're able to take out this stage of this fight, no, it didn't quite get there, then we'll move on to another section of the fight. All the stages are decently themed around the advertising that we encounter, and the boss fights also feel that way. So our pharmaceutical one, we get pharmaceuticals. You also have ones where you're being advertised for cars, home rentals, and of course fast food. So I do enjoy the various satire that's present here in this particular title. So as far as the life is concerned, we have a HP bar that circles the character. As we take damage, then you'll see that bar fill with red, and if it fills all the way with red, then you'll lose a life, which is displayed on the right. But that's not necessarily that big of a deal. As I mentioned, this is definitely an easier bullet hell, and part of what makes it an easier one is like some of the abilities that you can get from fighting the bosses. So we also have bombs, and the bombs in this one are signified by skip. So we use that, and in the case of like this fight, it'll go and help clear the enemy shots. So the idea there is that we're skipping the ads, so I do like that it stays thematic within the realm of the game itself. So when you complete the bosses, after every stage, you're given a skill that's like unique to that particular stage. One thing that I think would be nice is if they'd mixed up the orders of the stages, so you could potentially get the skills in a different order as well. But the first stage gives us this skill, which if we're not shooting, we're building a meter that will ultimately give us a life if it fills up all the way, and that's part of why it's presented by Safe Pharmaceuticals there. Now we're in the second stage here. Oh, I accidentally paused the game. It's interesting that the pause for the game is B rather than the pause button. It feels a little bit awkward, just in my personal opinion. So there we basically have what is AdShoot. As I said, it does have kind of like a budget feel to it, but the boss fights really do help make the game. So with that said, as far as the minus flavors are concerned, so even despite the premise, like the visuals do just feel on the cheap side, and it just kind of like I don't know. Initially, when I first played the game on the demo, I was kind of a little bit turned off to it, but I was definitely more open to try the game when it came out in full release. But I decided to hold off until this Steam or this Switch release rather, because I felt like it was good timing to check this one out. Then it is on the easier side. So if you're going and looking for a more difficult bullet hell experience, then this might not necessarily be the kind of title that you want to dive into. There's also some issues where I feel that the game's feedback isn't all that good. So when you actually take damage, even dealing damage to the enemies themselves, I don't feel the game does enough to go and provide decent feedback for those particular exchanges. And then there's one more element that I want to go and discuss, and like that's the translation. So you do have those interactions between yourself and those PR representatives, and sometimes it's even hard to go and figure out what you're talking about, as the translation just is not all that great. So that's something to definitely keep in mind of the game as far as the minus flavors. But on the plus side, you have all these unique boss fights in particular that are definitely the bread and butter of this type of bullet hell. So if you're looking to go and enjoy a bullet hell that has some unique boss fights to it, then I definitely think you could go and do far worse than this title. And the extra stage, the way that one goes and shakes things up is it like takes all the various bosses that you've fought up to that point and gives them a unique attack that you can rely on throughout the course of one last stage that has a really tough, long boss fight. One thing to go and note that does go and surprise me, there are a couple spots where you do get slowed down in the game itself, and this particular boss fight is one. And this is even playing on a Switch 2, not necessarily a base Switch, so it's not so much the power of the system, more just the optimization of the game itself. But with all that said, at the end of the day, especially if you're a bullet hell fan, then AdShoot is definitely one that comes with a recommendation from the chef, but especially noting that you can still check out the demo for it available on Steam. And with that said, we find ourselves at the end of this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, we want to thank you so much for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful week yourself, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.